Okay, so it's counting down. Good afternoon, everyone. It's another episode of From Message to Movement Conversation. Today, I have the honor of talking to Gio Derice. Gio is an international speaker, owner of the company 2020 Living Inc., and best-selling author of The Thirst is Real. His works have been featured in the Huffington Post, a man's big time, News One, ABC, and BET, just to name a few. His inspirational messages, both engaging and funny, have helped so many make their dreams a reality. He's helped self-publish over 100 books in the last few years, consulting authors with his signature program, First Book Done. Gio is an entrepreneur, business consultant, and CEO of 2020 Living Inc. He lives in Brooklyn, New York with his family. Gio, I'm so happy to have you today. I'm
What's
good.
going on, man?
Yes, sir. And so, Gio, without hesitation, tell us about your journey. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I think, man, I just had a conversation about this earlier today, and my journey started back at 18 years old, going to college and deciding to want to be a high school football coach like at 18. And so I had the opportunity to mentor a bunch of young men, teach them about life, teach them about football. Did that for 3 years. And then I was like, listen, this was so profound. I had a lot of people like later on in the years tell me, Gio, like my first house was purchased. I got married, the kids, through the principles and stuff that you shared. And so, those are the things that I carry with me and said, I want to be a motivational speaker, teaching other people how to do this. And, the rest was history. And after that, I went from motivational speaking to writing a book to teaching others how to go ahead and write a book, all with the purpose of them being able to take a message and spread it to the masses to create an impact.
Awesome. And so what makes you unique as far as the things that you offer and just your approach to life and to what you do professionally?
Yeah, I think it's the intersection of all the different things I've been exposed to from, I think you have like football, faith, and family, right? Which a friend of mine, Roger, talks about a lot too. And so I think for me, my faith has given me the belief to go ahead and do many different things. And I thank my mom and my dad for that. And then football taught me discipline, taught me structure, taught me working with others and working in a team aspect for a common goal. And then, honestly, just family's legacy, purpose, teaching somebody the way to go and do stuff and carrying them along the way. And so everything in my life has always been around coaching, about telling somebody how to go and do something. And I've seen that constantly happen throughout every different, job or career or thing of purpose that I'm trying to do. There's always been this idea of giving people hope and faith, teaching them how to do something that will impact their family and doing something that they're passionate about. And so that's me in a nutshell, man. And I just try to figure out how to make all those three things always be a part of the picture.
And yes, I know, I've known you for about 5 years, 6 years now.
Yeah.
And, I know that that's just not lip service. I mean, you're a down to earth guy and, you're a person that really walks the walk, not just talks the talk, you walk the walk. And so, where did you get that from?
Yeah. Where did I get it from? God first, right? I think, but my parents has always been of service. They've always been about You know, I just recently lost my dad, and you know, as we talk about the stories and things about him, you know, everything was about letting the right hand not know what the left hand does, but always making sure that he was taking care of somebody else. You know, whether it's I said this at the funeral. I joked and said that for every check my dad wrote to a bill collector, he wrote 2 checks to the church to make sure the mission kept on going forward. And so that's the foundation of taking care of other people, giving other people what you didn't have. That all came from my parents. They taught me that. And then they also taught me the most important thing was how to do life with God. And so, you know, those things are my foundations. Those are the things that I stand on when life be storming. That's the thing that anchors me.
Yes. And so, of course, we want to give condolences to your father. Obviously, he's a great man because you're a great man. And so we
Yeah.
definitely see, the legacy that he left, he left. And so,
Appreciate it.
again, just give our condolences with that. And so
Yes, thank you.
what you said, though, it really aligns. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I thought you had said something. Yeah. What you said really aligns with the direction that the group is going in, from message to movement,
Mm-hmm.
because you talk about service, and when you start a movement, it should be about service, right?
Right, right.
And so a big part of what you do is helping people move in that direction. And so let's say that I was coming to you and saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, I want my message to get out. What would be your words of wisdom or strategy that you would share?
No, great question. For me, I would say who needs it the most, right? Because that's what I would say. I feel like everyone has a message. Like who you communicated to varies. Some people, their message is to give it to one person. Some people are called to spread a message that the masses should adapt in a form of a movement. And so for me, I would say, like, who do you think your message would best serve? Right? Because we want the message to help move someone to somewhere they wanted to go or somewhere they didn't even think they could go. But because of your message and the way you've delivered it, they now have the hope and the belief that they can go ahead and do that. And hopefully they're in the track of them trying to pursue that. They meet others along the way who's also about that movement. So I think it's super important for you to just understand that first and foremost, because if you understand who's the message for, it helps you to understand how to deliver the message more effectively. I always use the analogy of, if I know that I have a vegetarian coming over for dinner, I'm not cooking my best steak as the thing for dinner, right? Because they're not going to appreciate the thing that I'm doing, and that also doesn't show that I care about them if I'm putting steak on the menu and
Mhm.
you don't eat any meat. So when you think about your message, and here's the one thing I would say, you say advice or information, is don't try to resist the urge to say your message is for everybody. Let me
Mm.
say this again. Try to resist the urge to say, hey, my message is for everyone. Your message being for everyone doesn't mean that everyone is going to have the same level of potency to be able to do what they were supposed to do with that message. And so I think it's more important to say the question that I said before, who is best positioned, or who in whose hands does my message, if they get it, will take them a lot further. That's not everyone. You know what I'm saying? So like if I teach you how to run out of the blocks and run a faster 40, the average person doesn't need to know that, but the football player that I was coaching needs to know that, right? So that message needs to go to the person who could best utilize that information.
Good stuff right there. Good stuff. And so, yes, you got to understand who you are meant to serve. And so, I know you help people write books, you help them
Mhm.
strategize their books. What is that one of the major things that they struggle with the most, is trying to touch everybody?
So that's one of the struggles. One of the struggles is that they water down their message so much that it doesn't create transformational change in anybody. Right? It's almost it's too watered down. It's not specific enough. The other part of it is that is a big struggle for a lot of people is if you've lived life long enough, there's so much for you to share. And so they get caught up in, well, I don't know what thing to actually share, which is why I say it's so important for you to know who you're talking to. Because if I'm talking to a 20-year-old, I'm not telling them the advice I would give a 60-year-old. Right? My book looks different for a 20-year-old than a 60-year-old because I know their attention span is different. The 60-year-old person has a different type of desire that the 20-year-old would have. So it's knowing what to share, knowing who you're sharing it to. And then the other struggle that a lot of people have is they think the message and movement conversation is reserved for the elites. So they think like, man, you know what? I don't have a Nobel Peace Prize. I don't have more doctorates, more degrees than a thermometer. So they go ahead and say to themselves, I have nothing to share, not realizing that if where you are, someone else desires to be, then you now are that person in that person's point of view. So if I go and say, I live in a luxury building, but I live on the first floor, and someone will say, well, I'm not going to share how I made it until I get to the penthouse. But they don't realize the person who don't live in the building, they just want to get in the building. They don't even care about the penthouse. But if you wait until you get to the penthouse to tell that person who's not in the building how they get in, we take for granted, right? And I know this firsthand now, we take for granted that, oh, well, they'll be waiting. When I get to the penthouse, I'll send the elevator back down for them. No. If you in the building and they outside the building, you in a position to help that person right now. And so I want to just liberate people who feel like they're disqualified for the call because they don't have endless amount of credentials, and realize that where you are, someone else desires to be. And all you need to do is find that person where they're at and share with them how you get to where you are.
Wow. I know that's going to bless somebody because, yeah, that is one of the things that stops people. It's like, hey, I'm not the one. I don't have the credibility or whatever else because I don't have the titles or the recognition. And like you said, oftentimes it's just the words of wisdom that you can give someone that wants to be where you are at. And it's funny because, you just never know. It kind of speaks to the fact that you never know who's watching you, who's paying attention to you. And oftentimes those people that you don't even think are watching you, you're having an impact on them.
Correct. 100%. For sure.
Yeah, just great stuff. And so, again, I know you help people strategize books, which again, that's a way to get your message out to a movement. And so in that process, as far as helping people with their books, what's another thing that they tend to struggle with, or maybe it's maybe even a misconception that they have regarding the process?
The biggest misconception, especially I think for the people who are probably listening to this, the biggest misconception is that people want to hear your story. And when I say hear your story, they do want to hear it. It's the angle in which we sell the story that we normally mess up at, right? That's the misconception. So we like, hey, I'm going to share all my details. Here's the story. It was a sunny day, clear blue skies. I woke up. I brushed my teeth like I always did, but this time I had orange juice for breakfast instead of the coffee. And so we go into all these details because we're in the era of vlogs and blogs and everybody's an influencer. So we overdo the details. And what we miss is the fact that the only reason someone's reading your story is to find themselves in it. I'm going to say that again. They're reading your story trying to say, yo, Mills is telling the story and I'm listening to Mills tell his story and I'm trying to find, how do I become the main character of the story? I'm reading it hoping that you will give me some wisdom so that I can be the star. I want you to think
Mhm.
about it like this. It's almost like we get confused. Like most people want to play the video game. They don't want to watch you play it.
Wow.
I want to play. So when you keep telling your story, you're telling the person, yo, man, watch me play this game. And then you look back at them and ask them, why are you not having so much fun? Because I'm not playing. Like, what you mean? Well, I'm not having so much fun. And so it's important for you to understand that the position that your story should take isn't to be the main character of the show or the story or the movement, but to be an inspiration so that the person who's along the journey to that you're looking to inspire and impact, that they have the ingredients, the inspiration, the tools that they need, the resources, so that they can be the star. They'll give you credit, trust me, but you have to understand that if you're the shining star, they don't see a spot for them. And then those are the reviews that you read on social media and on Amazon and all those things that says, man, this person was self-centered. And you could have been writing it from a position of, I just want to help people. But if you write it and it's just your diary in a book form, someone is going to go ahead and say you self-centered when you actually couldn't be further from the truth. You literally could have just kept the story to yourself, but you shared it in hopes to inspire them. But if you give too many details about you and not enough about asking them questions. So one of the strategies I always tell people is like, when you're telling a story, always find a way to prompt the person to reflect and ask them about something in your story, but for them to go and look internal. So if I go and say, hey, I overcame obstacles and I told you a whole story about me overcoming obstacles, I would end that story by saying, what's a moment in your life that something was very challenging, but despite the challenge, you were able to overcome it? That question alone allows me to make the reader become the star for a moment. And that's what's going to make them, in that reflection, is when they're going to go, I could do just like what Mills did. But that question, if I don't ask it, they don't discover that answer for themselves. Like the answer doesn't show up if the question doesn't appear, if that makes sense.
Mm. And so, we hear a lot about vulnerability. And
Mhm.
so I don't know, how do we walk the fine line of being vulnerable, talking about ourselves, talking about our challenges, while making sure that our reader, our listener, or whatever becomes the star of the
Yeah,
story?
no,
And I know that might
I
be a
think
complicated question.
no, it's not. I think it's a fair one though, because vulnerability, transparency, all of being honest, those are hot topics now, right? That's what that's almost like what's required now for you to enter the conversation of inspiring people. The thing that we have to understand though is, if I'm there's two way I would answer this. Number one, be mindful of the fact that less is more. So you don't need to give me all the details of what happened in the day, right? Leave some open loops for people to go ahead and ask you questions. So something as simple as, man, reading books changed my life. I don't have to necessarily tell you every book I've read. The person who's interested is going to go and put a comment on your social media post that's going to be like, what's your favorite book? Now, if they ask the question about open book, I'm going to tell you. But for you to overshare, you run the risk of somebody losing interest. And I'd rather someone be so interested that it leads them to asking a question than for me to seem like I'm over interested in myself and I leave nothing for you to ask. Right? Like, think about every TV show you look at, they leave something for you to be like, yo, man, I didn't even see that. Oh, snap. Look, they're setting you up for the next. And I think that's something that's important for us to think about. The other side of the vulnerability conversation is, I strongly recommend anybody who's writing a book or who's sharing anything to share it in a container and then expand that container. So it would be something as simple as, like, me and Mills, we're good friends. I might be working on a presentation or something that I want to share. I go and hit up Mills, just catch up, see how you doing. And while we're in that conversation, I slip in one of my points in a story just to see if it landed. And then he goes and says, and I'm listening to hear, yo, man, Gio, that's a good analogy. Or Mills could also say nothing. And I might go, this needs a little bit more work. Maybe I wasn't vulnerable enough, or maybe I didn't give enough context because he didn't ask me a question, or maybe I overshared. and Mills don't got nothing to ask because I closed every loop. I strongly encourage you, get into the habit of sharing what you want to share to smaller audiences. Everyone wants the masses, right? This is called message to movement and stuff like that. Everybody wants the movement, but no one wants to create that first ripple. We want the big joint. Yo, man, I want the freaking blizzard. Find you a snowflake, though. A blizzard is just a bunch of snowflakes that just decided to all come together, right? And constantly happen. So I strongly encourage everybody to do the same thing. Like when you go to dinner, hijack the dinner for 5 minutes and tell your story and see if it lands. And if it doesn't land, get feedback right then and there so that when you do go ahead and bring it to the masses, that wasn't the first iteration of it. It's the more refined version that you present to the masses because you've been testing that. And trust me, a lot of people do that, from movies to books to songs. People are testing it in containers. We get it in mass production and we say, man, Beyonce is so talented. Man, Lil Wayne is so talented. And we don't realize there was a stage of that content that the person vulnerably shared to a specific group of people to get the raw feedback that made them present to you the refined one that you enjoy. And I think I want to give everybody the permission to do the same.
So you talk about feedback, and oftentimes, I'm not going to say oftentimes, but feedback can be positive, feedback can be negative. And so how has, I guess, whatever feedback you have gotten, how do you use it? You know, whether it be positive or negative, because oftentimes that's something that we struggle with, yours truly included. I'll do a speaking presentation, and of course I'm looking at the feedback and it might look great, but then I see that one comment and I have to determine, like, okay, is that something worth looking at a little bit more deeply, or should I just blow that off? And so what's your philosophy about it?
I love feedback, man. I think first and foremost, no one leaves feedback if they don't care. So even the negative ones, right? Like I've had feedback where people said, man, Gio should have involved the audience more in his speech. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like I'm seeking mastery and I'm seeking maximum service. So if someone tells me something, I take it with a grain of salt. Like I'm not saying that I change everything just because somebody says something, but I understand that I'm not on that stage. I didn't write that book for me. So what someone says, I take it at face value and take it very seriously. So if you tell me it wasn't good enough, that's an opportunity for me. Like I want that. Like, and I think I strongly encourage a lot of people. People are so scared of the negative, and it's taken time for me to get there where I'm like, yo, listen, they're giving me the actual ingredients to make the better recipe. But we don't think about it that way because most of the time when we enter this conversation of having even the courage to share a message, we are full of doubt in presenting the message. So we're so vulnerable that one negative feedback could knock us off our horse completely. That's why I always remember, why am I doing this for? I'm not doing this for my ego. I'm not doing this to go and look good. I'm doing this so they can be good. And if they tell me it's not good, then tell me how can it be good, right? Because I need you to eat this thing that I'm cooking for you and like it. So I tell people, like, lean into the feedback. And I think that's why I ask for it, because if I ask for it, then it's easier to digest versus unsolicited feedback. Now, that's a whole different story in a different conversation. Like, if I ain't asked you for feedback and you're like, you know what, Jill, you know what you should have done? I'm like, no, like, I ain't asked. I didn't ask you. So if you're saying which one to reject, which one not to reject, which one to respond to and which one to reject, I don't respond to unsolicited advice or unsolicited feedback. Especially because I already know part of my system is asking for feedback. So if somebody tells me something and I didn't ask for it, that thing goes straight to the trash, right? And maybe sometimes I might miss something. I might miss some good feedback that's unsolicited, but if you give it to me unsolicited, 9 times out of 10, that thing is not going, is going through one ear and out the other.
So we're talking about how you see feedback, but again, I know you help people put books together and everything, and so how do you give feedback? What's your approach to giving those that you coach feedback?
Good question. I try to give it as raw as possible because I think if it's and when I say that I mean it's the stuff that your parents would tell you where they say if I do it this way here, then you can survive anything out there. So for me, like I'm not hesitant to tell somebody this was a bad idea. And I know that you give the nice sandwich of say something good, put something bad, and then end it with something good. I've done that approach too. But I think for me, most importantly, I've always start giving feedback by reassuring the person that I'm here for them. That's how I start, right? So we got to have that common ground of whatever Gio's telling me is for my good, which means he might say something that I don't want to hear. And so all my clients, all the people I've ever worked with, they understand that my heart is to serve and to be there for them. And so because we have that as common ground, I don't have to sugarcoat. I don't have to lie to them and give them this fake assurance. Like I can just be totally honest because we are in agreement that what we're putting out is not about us. That's the first thing I teach is like, it's not about you. And if you keep telling me, oh, well, I want to be I want to be the most famous person in the world. This is already a disconnect for me because I'm like, we don't do this to be the most famous person in the world. We do this so that somebody else has an opportunity to experience something they would have never experienced had we not open our mouths and say something about it. So that's honestly the way I've been giving feedback, and it hasn't failed me yet. I will tell you, I've had people who've been angry with what I've shared with them. Especially when you could imagine somebody gives me their book and says, Gio's 95% done. And then I tell them, we got to start over. Like, right. Like they're like, what you mean? Like it's a marathon and I'm at the last leg and you telling me I've been running the wrong race the whole time or the wrong direction. And I'm telling them like, you want to finish the race and raise your arms and no one cheers for you, or you want to go and finish the race correctly? And if you want to finish it correctly, then if it requires to go about face, then we're going to do that. But one of the things I always tell people is I'll never tell you to go somewhere that I'm not willing to travel with you. So if I tell you it sucks and it's bad, I ain't going to say it sucks, it's bad, go figure it out. I'm going to tell you it sucks, it's bad, but I know how to make it better. Let's do it together. And that makes that kind of softens the blow a little bit when you let somebody know you're willing to carry the cross with them.
So you pretty much, you help people turn their message into a movement through helping them put together books and everything. And I know that you do a message to a movement through a lot of things. I know you do speaking. Of course, you've written books.
Yeah.
And so what's your preferred way? What way would you prefer to have your message get out there?
That's a tough one, man. Like they so different in style. I will say, if I had to pick one, I would say book only because the person could tap into it at any time, right? Like when I go do a speech, 9 o'clock I start the speech, 10 o'clock I'm done. I might still be there for another hour hanging out, but after that, it's over. Like you got to remember whatever you remembered. But I love the idea of a book because you could doctor it up, you could put stuff in the margins, you could take notes, you could revisit it again. And a lot of times when I'm reading a book the second time, I'm no longer the person I was when I read it the first time. And so I'm able to download new nuggets and reflect on the old ones at the same time. So I love the idea of a book because it allows you the opportunity to revisit and refine a lot easier than the spark of a speech. So I think that they just serve different purposes. I think that a speech is a spark. I think a book has more sustainability and staying power. And so I don't think it's an or, it's a matter of which one you do first and then come up with the next one. But if I had to pick between the two, I'll choose a book. Like, I don't know. I've never heard James Clear wrote Atomic Habits, sold over 25 million copies of his book. I've never heard him do a keynote though, but I've read his book like 3, 4 times and I'm reading it again right now. And I've always heard him say systems over goals. And it's only now that I fully understand why I need that versus it just sounded like a sweet song when I read it the first 3, 4 times.
Mm. Wow. Ooh, okay. So yeah, you rather the book route as
Yeah.
opposed to speaking, and I'm different. I think I would much rather speak than a book, but it's all good. And it's the ironic thing is, I would consider myself an introvert, but I'd much rather be on a stage speaking.
But now you got me curious because you got me curious because you ain't divulged everything. So you created an open loop for me. What is it about speaking that excites you, or why do you choose that method over a book per se? Like, especially you saying you're an introvert, but still choosing that route.
Because I think I can show more of my, I think it's because I can show maybe more of my creativity and personality through a talk.
Okay.
As opposed to a book. Yeah, it's more dynamic. It's kind of like, you hear about the entertainers that were introverts where they get on a stage and they can kill it. And yeah, for me it's more of it's an expression. It's an opportunity to help people, number one, and number two, I can express myself. And I feel like it all comes together. So, yeah, that'd be the reason why. Great question.
And I'm glad I asked that question too, because it now also tells me that might be a blind spot for people who are writing, is they feel like I don't know how to convey my personality, or I don't know how to make the words more dynamic so that it is highly more engaging. And so that's something that I'm glad I asked you, because I think that there's a method to be able to deliver in the written word your personality. You can do an audiobook and still have that impact as well. And then even from a dynamic perspective, there's ways to use metaphors and things like that could help people see pictures in the written form too. So I'm glad you shared that, because that's an opportunity to help people with the writing.
Now one thing I see that well is that you mentioned metaphors. Your metaphors and analogies, every time I communicate with you, I just love them. They're just very catchy to me. And so where does that come from? Like, how do you even think about these things?
Honestly, I think what I hate the most is for someone not to see what I'm saying. Like, I don't want wasted words. So I don't want to talk for talking's sake. So for me, I'm so passionate about someone seeing where I'm coming from, because I know I'm here to serve, that I always am obsessed with the person I'm communicating with to be able to go and use the right metaphor. I think that's the key. The key to a metaphor is to be effective is you must know what images already exist in the person you're communicating to world. So if I don't know what your world look like, I can't use the most effective metaphor. You can still use one, but it won't be as effective, right? So if I go and use a metaphor and I'm like, and I'm talking to you, I would use, I know you have background in New Orleans, right? Like you did you grow up in New Orleans?
Louisiana,
right? So in Louisiana, Got you. So Louisiana, I know you live currently in Texas. I know you're a speaker. I'll use any of these little elements, these different pieces, and that's always in the back of my mind. And it's just floating. It's just floating in my head because I'm like, yo, if I'm telling Mills something and I want it for his good, I gotta be willing to. I gotta be willing to go where he's been and draw from that to paint a better picture. So everything from a metaphor for me, like I can't tell you I've read a book or I sat down studying it. I think what has come to me is that I really like helping people. like I really love helping people so much so that my brain immediately when I'm talking to you is saying, how is Mills gonna get this? How is so and so gonna get this? And then I just quickly go and try to like take a couple of steps in your world or whatever I know and try to paint pictures that way, right? So I would say Texas Rangers, Dallas Cowboys, San Antonio Spurs before I ever say a New York Knicks reference or a New York Giants reference because of where you are, right? Because I'm like, because that might be, you may have seen something with the Spurs this morning while you were watching TV. And if I use a metaphor that talks about the Spurs, and I'm like, you know what, Mills, if you want to go and scale your business and to have consistency, then what you want to do is you want to go and build that same type of system like the Spurs have, where even though the coach has changed, the team has remained the same and consistent for all of the years. Now, if you live in San Antonio, you're like, yo, all right, I got that one, right? Like that makes sense. I know about the Spurs. But that does some type of connection stuff that's unspoken that makes the person say, yo, dang, man, I see that. And that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I'm obsessed about is trying to figure out, what's the picture that they're already watching and how do I take that picture and then connect it to what I'm saying so that they really, really see it.
I feel like that's such a great approach, but oftentimes people don't have the wisdom to do those things, like to try to learn more about people. It's like they're so locked in on their own importance that they just disregard the person in front of them. But then they're like, hey, I want to make a difference.
Yeah,
but it's very hard to make a difference, to have an impact, to have a movement if you're not really paying attention to the people, whether it be the needs of the people, whether it be the interest of the people. And so, again, I applaud you for that. And, you do a great job of really locking in and having a good knowledge base to pull from.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
And so we're getting close to wrapping this up. What do you got coming up? What do you have on the horizon?
Yeah, I have. I'm coming up with different things, man. I'm really just trying to figure out how to streamline the writing process. I think nowadays, I think a lot of people are waiting for the big publishing companies to give them the right of approval or to give them a stamp of approval that their message matters. And I think what I'm trying to do is figure out how to continuously take a complex thing like writing a book and streamline it and make it palatable for people to understand that they can go ahead and do it. And so for me, I'm really refining my first book done process so that it's not something that's as labor intensive as it used to be for a lot of people to write a book. So first book done is just getting like a refresh. That's really what I've been working on, is really just streamlining the process. Hey, do you have your outline done? Are you very clear on who you're going to impact? And so I'm really just creating some GPTs that will allow them to be able to go ahead and, late at night when you like trying to think about your book, it's cool to have AI go ahead and ask questions and have conversations back and forth. And AI never tells you you're talking too much. So you could probably get a lot further having those conversations with GPTs and things of that nature. It doesn't say, hey, Mills, you've been talking my ear off. It's like, what else would you like? And you're like, dang, right? I call it my second wife. Like ChatGPT is my second wife because it always answers my questions and it always seems interested. So I'm working on creating a couple of GPTs that's going to be able to help people to refine what their messaging is, to go and understand the landscape of what they're writing about. Because I feel like the more you know, when you talked about that knowledge base, I think that a lot of people, their heart's in the right place, but the knowledge base is lacking. So their heart is full of love, full of, I want to help people. But the skill set or the process or the frameworks or the philosophies are not present. And so I'm going to be working in 2026 to share that as much as possible so that people can have, the battery in their backpack to have the power to be empowered to know how to go and come up with these books. I really think that now is more than ever, it's easier to write a book. But whenever something becomes easier, it also becomes harder because we take for granted the work when it's easy. Right? Right. So you're like, I can come up with something. ChatGPT is going to give me an outline real quick. And then you forget the fact that the unique part of your book is your own experiences, but now you AI'd it and you basically, for lack of a better term, you washed away you. And you're the only thing that people haven't gotten yet. And so I'm trying to leverage those two worlds of taking advantage of it from a speed perspective, but making sure we use it correctly, only to bring forth clarity, not to do the work, but for you to be clearer on the work so that the work can go further and have a deeper impact on people. So, that's really the biggest thing I'm working on in 2026 or towards 2026 is to be able to help people and meet them where they're at. So I'm learning from you, I'm learning from this conversation, and I'm learning from a lot of people of where they get stuck and what's holding them back, and then coming up with solutions to overcome that.
So if somebody wanted to connect with you and talk to you about you providing them the service of helping them put their book together, how can they go about it?
Yeah, they can email me at geo@firstbookdone.com. I'm on social media as well, GeoDerice. You can send me a direct message. I'm an open book, so I want to help you. I'll tell you how I can help. And if I can't, I'll tell you that I can't also. Right. So I want to let people know, because I've had people who's like, hey, I want to be on Good Morning America by January 2nd, 2026. And I'm like I said, I could help you write a book. I didn't say I'm a magic wand or that little machine that you put a quarter in the movie Big, where you tell them, hey, I want to be 10, I want to be 17, and all of a sudden you're 17 when you go to sleep, right? Like I don't abracadabra it, but what I will say is that
man, I'm disappointed, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know how to trick. I don't know magic, but what I will say is that I truly believe people have a message. I do truly believe that if you are someone who believes that message should go to the masses, if you've forgotten about it, it will keep calling you until you address it. And so if you've been given up, or you're like, yeah, I've been thinking about this book for 5 years, if you're still thinking about the book, it hasn't died for a reason. And so don't let it keep on staying on the respirator. Like, give it life, breathe into it, engage, participate, share, but don't hold back, man. Like, the bar is lower than ever before. Self-publishing is a real thing. I think it was somewhere I read like $1.2 billion was generated with self-published books alone in the last year or so. So it's here. It's here. It's for the taking. And join the movement. Join the movement and participate in telling your story. And some people will be impacted what you shared more than the celebrity sharing it, because they may not be able to relate to the celebrity. Right? One of my favorite comedians is Kevin Hart. And they're like, hey, I like Kevin Hart, but he's not relatable anymore. And the only reason they're saying he's not relatable is because he's rich. Right? So now you got rich people problems. And you're like, yeah, you got rich people problems. I want the poor Kevin, the Kevin who was, right? And it's weird, but people want people who's where they're at or within arm's reach of it. And so right now is probably the closest you're ever going to be to the people you should be helping. So come out with it now before you elevate and get to a place where you're, you've lost the range to be able to impact them.
There you have it, folks. If you want to go from a message to a movement, I highly, highly encourage you to connect with my man, Geo. Again, he's a wise dude beyond his years. He knows his stuff in regards to this. And so I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, hey, I want to write a book. This is the guy right here. This
Appreciate
man
you,
right here. So
man.
Gio, man, I thank you so much for coming on the show and having a
Absolutely.
conversation, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. And please, people, keep tuning into this guy, man. He's constantly reinventing himself. I love that the fact that you never, you're like the Energizer Bunny, right? You just keep on going and going and going. And I love the fact that when you hit a hurdle, you don't stop. You just change direction. So, I support you and what you're doing.
And I do have hurdles, people. I know sometimes, from afar, the social media highlight reel looks really good, but yeah, there's a lot of hurdles along the way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, for
uh,
sure.
appreciate the I appreciate the love, man. And so again,
No
thank you
doubt,
so much
bro.
for coming on, man. We got
Absolutely.
some heavy hitters in addition to
Yeah, I saw
Gio that's
that.
going to
You got
be
Brian
on the
Oles coming, Brian
yeah,
Oles, David Martin. So
yeah.
I'm a fan. Like I'm not just on here to be a part of the conversation. I'm actually looking at all the stuff that you're doing. So, I'm excited.
Again, thank you so much, man.
No doubt.
All right, y'all have a happy holidays. Till next time, take care. Are you coming back on?